Many years ago, my family and I returned home from being out of town, and while unloading our vehicle in the driveway, we heard the sounds of a whimpering dog and turned to find a half-starved brown puppy with large feet. My teenage daughters picked him up and immediately asked, "Daddy, can we keep him?" I wasn't looking for another dog, but Dexter, as he became known, became a very humorous, antic-filled member of our family who gave us laughter and great joy. Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 3 of the Torah portion Teitze, which means when you go out. Let's go to Devarim, or Deuteronomy, chapter 22, and verse number 1 and following. When you see your brother's ox or his sheep straying away, you shall not hide yourself from them. Return them to your brother without fail. And if your brother is not near you, or if you do not know him, then you shall bring it into your house, and it shall be with you until your brother seeks it. Then you shall return it to him. And so you do with his donkey, and so you do with his garment, and so you do with whatever your brother loses. Now, why talk about Dexter? Well, we never did find out who Dexter's owner was. I think he wasn't lost as much as he had gotten dumped out on the side of the road. More than we found him, he found us. But there are those that see things, and having seen them, you're now accountable for them. While this talks initially about an animal or some possession, the principle is that once your eyes sees a need, you are accountable and responsible for doing something to meet that need. Now, everybody has seen the heart-wrenching videos and TV commercials about starving children or orphanages or some plighted group of people overseas. And I can tell you that not every one of those organizations are legit. They show you people in desperate, dire circumstances to pull at your heartstrings and open up your pocketbook. Oftentimes, though, those organizations carve out so much for quote-unquote administrative purposes that very little gets to those that are in need. We see people that are lost. I found a lady in a parking lot at Walmart desperately looking for her car. And I walked by her thinking, someone else will help her. When this verse of scripture came to my mind, and I had to do a 180 and go back, prompted by the Ruach HaKodesh, you need to heed the word. And I spent the next 15 minutes helping an elderly lady find her vehicle that was in a different parking lot. But I knew that I'd obeyed the word. When you see something, you cannot pretend you didn't see, ignore it, and say, somebody else will take care of it. No, Yah shows it to us, so we'll do something about it, leaning on the discernment of the Ruach HaKodesh to know when a need is legit and when a need is not. So I find it interesting here that the principle of you see it, you're accountable for it, that it is illustrated to us initially with two animals, an ox and a sheep. It just so happens that the ox is the symbol of the house of Ephraim, the house of Israel, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. When we hear the words of Yeshua in Matthew 15, verse 25, he says, I was not sent but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's his reason. His whole mission in coming, dying, bleeding on the cross, resurrecting, more than anything else, was to find you and I and provide a way home for us. As we read in Jeremiah 3 and 8, we were those that were cut off, divorced, and sent away. Reading the book of Hosea, you realize that we are those that have not received mercy, not received compassion, that have been scattered. We read Amos chapter number 9, and we realize that we are sown into the nations of the earth, But Yah promises that he's going to raise up the fallen tabernacle of David. King David, is the one who was able to assemble the entirety of the tribes of Israel and amalgamate them into a cohesive nation. His tabernacle is not complete until all the tribes are present. So there's a great promise that is there. In Luke chapter number 15, Yeshua gives us the parable of the shepherd that leaves 99 sheep in the corral, and then he goes out and he looks for that one sheep that is lost. And then comes home and he's rejoicing that the sheep that was lost has now been found. One would think, well, if you got 99, what's one? I mean, why all the effort? Because every last stray is an important commodity, an important person, an important one. So we're not just talking about an ox here. We're talking about the lost sheep of the house of Israel. We're talking about people that have been disenfranchised, cut off, people that have been invited to leave. They need a place to land. They need someone to find them. They're roaming. If we look in the book of Jeremiah, chapter number 50, verse 5 and 6, they shall ask the way to Sion, their faces toward it. Come and let us join ourselves to Yahweh in an everlasting covenant, never to be forgotten. My people have been wandering sheep. The shepherds have led them astray, turning them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. It's interesting then that not only is it an ox, but it's sheep. Yeshua said it's the sheep that he brings into the kingdom after he divides from them the goats. People are important. People will get on your nerves. People will try your patience. People will frustrate you. People are different. People are people. Every chance that they get. But Yeshua loves them and he loves us. You have to stop and remember, as much as someone may test your patience, so do you someone else. We're not all lovable little teddy bears. Some of us have issues. That being understood, in the book of Psalms, chapter 119, the last verse says, in verse 176, I have strayed like a lost sheep. Seek your servant, for I have not forgotten your commands. Listen, not everybody that's disconnected or disenfranchised is a problem. They're trying their best to do what is right, and it's become uncomfortable from wherever it was that they were. They need us. They need us to find them. And the principle in the Torah is you keep them until he who owns them comes looking for them. In that day, Yeshua will come looking for them, and I dare say he will reward those that have been faithful to keep them until his return. Now, two other things. The following verse of our Torah principle is that if a man loses his garment, you're to find it. A garment is indicative of one's identity. There's an old saying that says that the clothes make the man. So when someone has lost their identity, again, we're talking, I think, about the house of Israel. It's those who have forgotten who they are, and they need to refine their calling, their purpose, and their identity. We need to help them to discern where they belong, who they are, and what Yah is requiring them. The harder one to discern here is the donkey, chamor in Hebrew. It is from a root word that means reddish, and it references that which is fomenting and boiling. Ishmael was referenced as a wild donkey, to put it the polite way, a wild donkey of a man. We're talking about people's passion. We're talking about passion here. There are people that are disillusioned and they've lost their sense of passion. We need to collect them and teach them what it means to be passionately involved and embraced again. So show a little passion while you show compassion. And let's connect to one another. More tomorrow. Till then, shalom.